Everyone, I'm Francisco Rebello. I'm a digital designer, and let's get cracking with this guide that I've put together for you. It's the 3-step guide to standing out without losing your mind. This was made from my experiences and as a designer and in my life, and it's made as advice to my younger self in the audience. So I hope you're listening. Step 1. Know yourself. When I began as a designer, I'd never heard of Shoreditch, and I thought that I had to do the most to fit in. But years later, I realised that to stand out from the crowd, you just have to be yourself. So who am I? I was born in Goa in 1988. Goa is a place in India that's an ex-Portuguese colony. So I grew up with an interesting mix of Portuguese and Indian cultures. Further to this, my mum, my dad, my one grandparent and a whole bunch of cousins were born in East Africa, Tanzania, Kenya and Zimbabwe. Swahili is like the third language spoken in my house. I go to Tanzania as much as I do Goa, and my dad always blazes Swahili music from his car. And to add to the mix, I grew up in Wembley. Wembley is one of the most Indian places in London, and growing up here meant that I played football with kids from all 4 corners of the world. We played football together, but went home to different languages and cultures. But I loved how open we were about our differences. And all this led to the style which is known as the Cisco style, all the colours and patterns. From early on, I'd been experimenting with materials, designing artwork for my brother's music production, and more recently making handmade slogans. And I've always shared this, whether it was MySpace, Tumblr or Instagram. And when I moved from Wembley into the designer world of East London, I took out all my sketchpad sheets and stuck them on my wall as my inspiration before I leave the house every day. Last year I took these bits and pieces of my bedroom, refined them and made them into prints and into t-shirts, which I sold online and under the brand name Tropicool. Tropicool being the name of my dad's first refrigeration and air conditioning business. So now you get it, Tropicool. And in July this year, I did my first exhibition in a cafe in East London. So don't be afraid to know yourself, to be yourself. Your background, your things on your bedroom wall, your passions are things that you can shout about that will help you to do exhibitions and people around the world will follow your Instagram. It will be by these passions that you will stand out and not by your portfolio. Number 2 is know when. So we can't all live the life of Pablo Picasso, and we're designers, not artists. So I have to let you know that 100% of my booked time that pays my wages is not spent doing what I just showed you. It's spent doing digital design. And for the last year and a half, on the NatWest mobile banking app, through my agency, Publicist Sapient. And I love this project. It's not the colourful, illustrative side of Francisco, but it is the side of Francisco that studied industrial design at uni, that read books about Transport for London, and is fascinated by the designed world that we use every day. And when I joined this project, I was well out of my comfort zone. It was super technical, had to know the intricate details between Android and iPhones, and it was really systematic design. But where it was visually limiting, I found creativity in the relationships and the way I had to liaise with the clients and developers to solve the problems in the most fun way. So that's how I find creativity within my project. But outside of my project is where I really get to stand out and shine. And this is still within the confines of my agency. So I tried to get involved in side projects. This one was something we did for a school workshop. We came up with the name, all the design, the branding, and it was great because it was attached with my company's name, but the whole visual aesthetic was my style, literally my handwriting and my hand marks. And find these opportunities where you can do this. Now, don't be afraid to think outside the box. You might be given a brief like, oh, can you design a poster for the Christmas party? And the person might just be expecting you to have a spare 20 minutes to put something together, which you can do. But if you can, when I have a great idea, I like to go all out. Even if it means spending more time drawing it out and doing it manually on the evenings, or if it means taking a risk and buying some paints and special paper from Papercraft and painting it on the weekend. It's these moments that help you stand out from the crowd. And one thing I've learned really recently is you can stand out the crowd without designing a thing. It's all in what you say. Like if you're stuck on a project or a client siloed in your studio and people don't get visibility of your design work, or if you're in a non-design job, share your inspiration on Instagram, on the work email, or in breakfast presentations. People are fascinated to see your perspective and what you're bringing to the table. And so I maintain this balance practically in my portfolio. I keep two separate sections. One is the work, where I keep my selected few projects. This follows the design process and structure. There's a beginning, middle and end. And this is what I'll talk to designers in a job interview. And on the flip side, there's play, which is all the fun stuff that was previously on my bedroom walls and things that I've done for fun, for friends. I've collected them and kept them separate. Like it's not about the process. But it's this side that helps me stand out from the crowd of other designers. So, very important, know when. Don't ignore the processes and structures you follow in your job, even if it's a project you hate or if you're not in your design job. You're learning valuable things that you can bring to a job interview. And personality, this is what's going to make you stand out. So find those opportunities, whether it's organising the Christmas party in your work, or if you're a retail team leader, don't think that your verbal skills and being passionate in speaking, that type of stuff is going to certainly help you stand out from the crowd of other designers who are only based on a computer. And the third and final step, respect yourself. This is what no one told me when I first began being a designer. And you've all heard, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Which is also true, but Adam JK, a designer from New York, added, work super fucking hard all the time with no separation or any boundaries, and also take everything extremely personally. Which I'm sure for most of you in the crowd, if you're studying at uni or trying to get your first job, rings true to you. It rings true to me, and trust me, it rings true to the creative director you follow or the every entrepreneur. So when I first started my company, Publicist Sapient, it was all great. It was like they're sick. The big plush buildings with shiny floors, big studios of designers. Everything was high tech and high paced. And after a good start, I slowly began to fall behind and fall off my projects, and found myself isolated in the corner of the studio. This was one of the hardest times for me being a designer. I would question myself whether I was a designer. I compared myself to all the other designers and was imprisoned by my own thoughts and self-doubt. Luckily, during this time, I had booked a trip away for myself to Lisbon. And my trick here isn't to book yourself a holiday, but it was super helpful to step away. Step away from the building, step away from designers, step away from Shoreditch, step away from the computer, And when I set foot in Lisbon, I was immediately overwhelmed with the smells, the sights, the colours, the patterns, the architecture. It really brought me back to why I wanted to be a creative in the first place. And the time away in Lisbon, cleared my mind to complete and present a project that I was working on. It was a side project, and I wanted to show my process to the studio of designers, and we did a breakfast presentation, and I wanted it to be defiantly analog. So I made sure to show my notes, my sketchbook scans, my inspiration, my sketches, my experiments with real materials. And the end result was a beautiful brand presentation with some colourful posters that stuck out in the sapient corridors. And what I learnt was, if you don't have the dream project to show, make your own. Find someone who needs a logo. They're now your client. Make a brief, go through a process, record your process, and present that at your job interview. And a major thing I said to myself, and that I took away from my Lisbon trip, was to stay inspired. When I was in my slump, designers were showing me other digital design portfolios and cool, flashy digital websites. And to be honest, they only made me feel worse. When I went to Lisbon, I was reminded that actually, no, colours, patterns, architecture, real world inspire me. And I came back refinding my favourite habit, which is Pinterest. And by Pinterest, I don't mean using it as a place to find inspiration. I actually use it as a tool to catalogue inspiration that I find in real life and in the internet. I have these folders of different categories, colours, typography and layout. And so when someone gives me a project, I go to my own folders first and have my own stash of colour inspiration that has been curated by me, and not go into the big wide world of general colour inspiration. So this is a great tool that I use to keep me inspired during the day, but also is super useful for when I want to do some design. So yeah, this is really important. Respect yourself. Standing out doesn't mean like doing anything crazy. It can start with leaving your family and your normal life to embark on this career and this world of design that the rules of the design world doesn't make sense to the rest of the world. And you'll be going through times where your family and friends won't really be able to advise you, and you'll be getting to feel isolated. So I've made you some top tips to avoid this. So if you're listening, younger Francisco, listen up, because this will save you some pain. 1. Do not put the design world on a pedestal. And it's easy to follow these designers, creative directors and companies and think that they're design gods. They're not. They know what they know and their design journey. Their criticisms of you is just on the project that you showed them. Don't let that seep into your self-esteem. Next, don't isolate yourself. Go meet your friends, go speak to your design peers outside of your company. You'll find that the things you're going through aren't just going through by you. We're all going through similar things. And go to meetups. And my tip for going to meetups is don't just sit there and listen to the talk. Speak to the people sitting next to you and be chatty. By me being chatty at a meetup is how I got to do this presentation. Next, find a mentor. This is really key. Find a good mentor who you can trust, someone you can be open with your weaknesses about. My mentor, Sam, was really told me about his struggles as being a designer and his struggles outside of life, both of which I really related to and felt able to open myself up to, and he was really great during his time. Create boundaries. Eat well, sleep well, say no to work and say no to your friends. Like if you've got a disruptive WhatsApp conversation, remove yourself from it, because that person's urgencies aren't yours in a time of crisis. And inspire yourself. Feed your eyes and your soul with what really makes you tick. And we're nearly at the end. This is a picture of my dad giving me a bath in a bucket in Goa with a goat. And baby Francisco has a message to end with. So, know yourself, yeah? This is your journey. Don't compare yourself with anyone else's. Know when to follow the structure, and know when to break the rules and stand out. And respect yourself. This journey isn't going to be easy, so look after yourself. And finally, be yourself. You're going to go on an adventure. It's going to be difficult, but we want to fill this world with interesting, diverse creatives and studios and designers and creative directors. So come on, let's go. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. Yours truly, Francisco. And before I go, get your cameras out because I've prepared some takeaway slides. Here I have put together a summary of everything I said. Take a picture and check it on the bus home. And here are some books I swear by and Instagrams to follow. These aren't your typical design industry resources. These are stuff that I find inspirational and useful, and designers openly talking about their struggles with being creative, being in a slump, and general mental health. And finally, if you have any questions, you can email me, follow me on Instagram, follow my Facebook page, or check out my website. Thank you for your time. I've been Francisco Ravello, and thanks.